I'm sorry.
Because a 0 out of 10, I thought was like, oh, I'm rating them out of 10.
No. Nope.
But okay. Let's move on to some history, and then we are done for today.
Yes, we are.
Because we're doing Across the Pond on 2 days from now.
Yes, we are. All right. Let me pull up this week in history. It's going to be running from Thursday, December 6th through Wednesday, December, quick maths, 13th. Is that right?
Can you
12th,
text me
apparently.
that, by the way?
What?
Last week's and this week's.
Okay.
Like the dates we went through.
So starting us off, December 6th, 1865, the 13th Amendment is ratified in the United States, which brings an end to slavery. This was Abe Lincoln's, this is his legacy in the United States, I think, is the abolition of slavery. It was not ratified until after his assassination, so he didn't get to live to see what that post-Civil War America looked like. But definitely probably I would say the most important of the non-Bill of Rights amendments.
Oh yeah,
13th
outside
Amendment.
the first 10.
Yeah.
Obviously
Even outside, I mean, probably bigger than even a good portion of the 10.
like the first 2 are pretty important, and then I would think it would be
I would probably put 113 2.
Yeah, it'd be top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Like in general. I think they're all equal in a way.
Okay, I mean that's a fair argument.
Like I wouldn't rank them. I'd just say those are the first 3. Boom, right there. Put it on there.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about that. It just watch Lincoln. It goes through the process of them trying to get this thing done.
Right. Yeah. And how he they touch on it in that movie, obviously, how they kind of use the end of the war as a way to get the bill passed.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Or as a way to they use it as a way to end the war. December 6th, 1877. Some random guy named Thomas Edison, I don't know who this dude is. He creates the very first audio recording. He recorded himself reciting "Mary Had a Little Lamb" into his phonograph. And he was the inventor of, I guess, the audio recording itself. Or that particular method of audio recording.
Yeah, 'cause no, they have audio recordings of other people before this, I believe.
I think it was that particular method that he patented.
Yeah, I think there's a recording on Lincoln actually, maybe.
Oh really?
I have to double check that. There's recordings of definitely people from the 1800s. I'm not too sure. I have to double check. I might be wrong. I probably am wrong.
I wrote this down as creates the first audio recording.
Okay. But yeah, I think I've heard this actual one in school once before, and it sounded super weird.
Okay.
Obviously, the quality sucked.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
It
It was very primitive. December 7th, 1787, Delaware becomes the very first state to, I guess they weren't even a state at the time, where they should say colony, I guess. Delaware becomes the first state, colony, whatever, to ratify the Constitution. Because they didn't become states until the Constitution.
Yep.
So they were still a colony or whatever, or even an independent sort of nation.
Yeah, they were. That's what a lot of them. Like I said before, I've already said this before. Whenever you hear Jefferson have a speech or anyone else have a speech before them becoming or ratifying the Constitution or the Articles of Confederation, they all thought themselves as countries, not as together in a way.
Yeah. Also on December 7th, a very significant day here in the United States, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. I could recite a whole very large portion of that FDR speech to Congress, but 1941, Japanese raids Pearl Harbor and Hawaii, sinking the vast majority of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, and it also is what brought the U.S. into World War II.
Yeah, 3 ships were out of basically 2 of them were just completely done and then one of them was actually, it got repaired, but it basically was considered sinked, and the other ones were just basically damaged.
Right.
But they were eventually repaired.
It was I believe it was inside of a year or 15 months or so that all the ships that were salvageable from Pearl Harbor were back in action.
Mm-hmm. Another, I think recently the last last military survivor from Pearl Harbor actually passed away.
Yeah, and they used to always have a remembrance event or like ceremony where they would bring back all the living, at least those that could travel, the living survivors of Pearl Harbor. And 2 years ago, I think it's been now, was the last time that they were going to do that. Just 'cause I think at that time there was only like 5 people left or something. So yeah, so they've stopped doing
and
that
then
now.
the memorial service we usually have it, like, because I'm right by Fairview Cemetery, like down the street, and definitely I think 10 years ago there was at least one guy there. I think he was actually from Santa Ana or lives in Santa Ana or something like that.
Okay.
That was there, and he was always there. There was always he was always the guy that got his like only like his when they were like, oh, yeah, like they would say like all the veterans for different wars to stand up, and then there was like the one guy who's like he was World War II, and then also can you stand up if you were a Pearl Harbor survivor, and like he was the only one that was standing up, and everyone actually got up and like clapped for him. It's like it was very
cool.
Very touching. I kind of like tear up just a little bit. You can see my eye just a little bit. It was a little like dude, crazy.
Yeah. So significant day in U.S. history and world history. Just like bringing the United States into World War II definitely turned the tides in the favor of the Allies. Probably I don't know, maybe one of the biggest, at least the way Japan went about this, perhaps one of the biggest strategical mistakes that there's been in like a long time before this.
To capitalize after, obviously, I would think.
Yeah. Just like I think because they obviously sunk a majority of the fleet, and then after the Battle of Midway, which was like I think 8 or 9 months later, the Japanese never won another battle after that. So definitely did not bode well for them.
But yeah, obviously, like their way of defending islands though was pretty crazy, very unique, I would say too.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely if they would have, probably should have waited a little bit longer for this to happen.
I think if they would have waited, like they could have, if they wanted to, they probably could have like taken Australia and taken New Zealand and taken all the, like if they'd have just left the U.S. out of it. And obviously they were allied with the Germans and the Italians, and it didn't help the Germans or Italians that the U.S. got involved either.
Yeah. They were the first ones out.
Yeah. December 8th, 1765, a man named Eli Whitney is born. He was very similar to Thomas Edison in that he invented like a whole bunch of different things. But what I have him in for is the inventor of the cotton gin. I always think of the cotton gin as kind of what started the Industrial Revolution.
Didn't we already have this?
I think we had something about the cotton gin itself, but not Eli Whitney being born.
Oh, being born. Okay, we had the cotton gin being invented. This is his birthday.
I think maybe a few weeks ago we had like the patent was issued.
No, this was like a while back. This is like a couple months ago, actually.
Okay. I think we had like the patent for the cotton gin. But this is like Eli Whitney was born on this day.
Okay.
So, yeah. So like I said, inventor of many things that were very useful at the time, but the cotton gin probably being the one that he's most famous for.
Saved a lot of fingers from being cut, for sure.
December 8th, 1980, jumping more than 200 years forward. This will be the 38th anniversary of the death of John Lennon. He was shot and killed outside of his... Yeah, 1980, right? That math checks out.
No, I thought it was 81.
I have it as 1980. Maybe I messed up.
I'll double check.
Okay.
I thought it was 81.
John Lennon shot and killed outside of his apartment in Manhattan. I don't remember the dude's name. I know that they always hold like a ceremony in Central Park every year when the anniversary comes by for this.
1980.
It was 1980? Okay. So probably he's one of the more influential members of that generation, I would say. And it was quite the shock, I think, for that time when he was killed.
Yeah, there's a movie about the guy that assassinated him. What's it called? Jared Leto plays him.
Oh, okay.
I watched it. It's Catcher in the Rye, but it's how many chapters? Do you know remember how many chapters in Catcher in the Rye at all? Well, basically it's like 20 something chapters, and then it was like they called the movie Chapter 24 because he had some kind of a relation to like Catcher in the Rye, and they call it Chapter 24. something like that, or 23. And they go through like the process and actually making the actual call to his sister about telling him like he's gonna kill John Lennon. But she was on he leaves like a voicemail, and then he does it, and then she doesn't listen to the voicemail until after it happened.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's not my history teacher. We haven't got to it yet, but he's apparently gonna go through like we have a lecture that's gonna come up about John Lennon and his like links to like I don't know. Apparently, like the CIA might have had some kind of thing to do with this or something like that. I don't know. Or no, it was MI6. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see. I don't know. I want to hear his side of this, what he got to say. But we'll come back maybe to this.
December 8th, 2010, relatively very recent compared to most of the things we cover here. SpaceX, run by Elon Musk, obviously, becomes the first private company to launch, orbit, and recover a spacecraft. So I think SpaceX is kind of seen as the future of space in general, and like the work that they're doing for like lunar missions and Mars missions in the future, and private like personal travel.
Is it 2020 they're supposed to go to the moon?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
And
so
they're like already selling tickets, I think, or whatever.
so you're gonna live on the moon
No. It's like a ticket in the whatever craft to go to the moon.
and then back?
Yeah, I think so. Or go to space or so.
I thought it was going to space.
I don't know. I don't know
about the moon.
I don't remember.
Yeah. What's it called? Very expensive to do.
Obviously.
Do you know about this technology it's like a laser that you shoot at some kind of object and it launches stuff?
Nope.
Okay. Well, apparently like this is like I think I saw a video like it's been a while. It's like Tom DeLonge's company that's developing some kind of stuff like this, where it's like it's instead of using jet fuel, you use this. You heat it with this like laser, and it shoots enough energy up, and it shoots it in these like cubes or something like that.
Never heard of it.
It's for like cargo or something. I'll show you. I think.
Okay.
But yeah, because that's what he was like. Yeah, we're gonna try to sell this to Elon Musk or something like that. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens about that, bud.
December 9th. I actually skipped because I didn't think there was anything terribly interesting. So if you want to look for something on December 9th, go for it.
I got it.
December 10th, 1817, Mississippi is admitted as the 20th state of the United States. Again, like this time of year, for whatever reason, seems to be kind of popular for those things. December 10th, 1851, a man named Melville Dewey is born. And this will be a deep cut, I guess, for everyone our age or older that's listening. But I guess a lot of the young people won't even be familiar at all with this, which is kind of strange and sad. But Melville Dewey was the creator of the Dewey Decimal System, which was what was used to organize like basically all libraries in the world for like decades until the rise of computers. So he invented this whole system of organizing books by like genre, author, like date published. I forget like what the individual numbers were, but it was like this whole big system, and like it kind of caught fire in everywhere.
Caught fire.
And there used to be, when you went into a library, there were like these basically note card kind of size things that were in this huge file thing, and you had to like pull it out looking so you could find your book on the shelf, so you knew where to go to get it. You had to like look in these little drawers that had all these notebooks in it. It was crazy. Different, like that feels like a whole different world.
Yeah, it does.
Where it's like now you just walk in and you're like you go to Barnes and Noble and you're like, hey, you said you brought up Catcher in the Rye earlier. It's like, hey, I'm looking for Catcher in the Rye, and they're just like, oh, type in Catcher in the Rye, and like, oh, this shelf right here.
Yeah. Well, I think librarians back in the day knew, like, for me when I worked in retail, I knew where everything was because
I know.
But like, well, I'm pretty sure like librarians, like after they got the system down, they were able like to tell you exactly where a book was, like off the top of their head, just because like they were just in it.
Yeah. December 10th, 1962. This definitely should say 1862. I realized that was a typo. So December 10th, 1862, the House of Representatives passes a bill creating the state of West Virginia. This was obviously during the Civil War. The state of Virginia was seceding from the Union, but there was not a huge chunk, but like probably like about a third of Virginia's counties that refused to secede, so they like seceded from the state kind of. And then the Union, or like the United States Congress, granted them their own statehood because they wanted to stay in the Union. So that was like the creation of West Virginia.
Yeah, and that was the only state created during the Civil War.
Right. Yeah.
Did you say that already?
I did not say that
Okay.
was the only state during the Civil War.
Yeah, yeah.
But kind of a unique circumstance. It's probably like one of the more unique. I would say like that and Texas are like the two most unique creations of a state, where it's like they seceded from a state to become a state, and then Texas was its own country and then became a state. It's like
Yeah,
they're both
those-
of those are like really unique, but the others is just like the traditional process kind of.
I agree.
I lost my spot.
Still on December 10th?
I'm gonna be on December 11th. Did you find
let
anything
me-
for
December 11th or 9th, real quick. Buckingham Palace announced the separation of Prince Charles and Princess of Wales Diana. So that's when they got
They got divorced or whatever.
that was 1992. 1993, a 5-day repair job in space on $3 billion Hubble telescope or space telescope was finished by the U.S. astronauts, and what's it called? What was it? Clarence Birdseye developed a method of deep freezing foods and was one of the founders of General Foods Corp. Was born on this day in 1886.
Okay, cool.
Kind of
There
an
you go.
important one.
December 9th.
Kind of important.
Covered.
Freezing food.
December 11th, 1816, Indiana is admitted as the 19th state. So once again, more states this time of year getting thrown into the Union. December 11th, 1936, King Edward VIII abdicates the throne to marry American Wallace Warfield Simpson. Kind of a strange, again, like doesn't seem really all that long ago, but like this woman that he fell in love with, he was King of England, but the Church of England would not permit him to marry her because she had been previously married and divorced. And so he just like straight up left the throne
To do this.
to like marry this girl. Yeah. And then that's actually what put Queen Elizabeth like in line for the throne, because her father, George VI, who was the brother of Edward, took the throne when he abdicated. So you can, I guess in sort of pop culture, you can see like maybe the King's Speech. George VI plays a big role in The Darkest Hour, and a big role in like the first season of The Crown, I would say, where it's I almost said Kenneth Branagh. It's not Kenneth Branagh. I'm blanking on the name of the guy that plays George VI.
Yeah, you
in
get those
the-
hints for those movies to kind of get back. I don't think I would say watch if you are really interested in actually knowing this stuff. Watch movies as like a platform in a way to jump off of, and then actually read about it after. So because that's like another bad thing. Like people are like, oh, I watched this movie. I learned this from this movie. I'm like, you learned it from like a movie being adapted, or like it's being adapted to be entertaining.
Right, yeah. I'm sure that there are plenty of really good documentaries about kind of this period in like the English crown. Because obviously Edward VIII went into exile after this. He lived in France, I believe, for a while. Like he left England altogether. He was kind of like kicked out of his family, basically. And then George VI ended up being king during World War II. And he was kind of thrust into the spotlight despite being like he had a speech impediment and like was very like shy in general or whatever, but like was kind of just pushed forward to become king of England. It's such like a crucial time in their history.
I saw a picture with Elizabeth II with each president since Eisenhower, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, she's been there for a while.
Yeah.
They just like 5 or 6 years ago had like the Diamond Jubilee or whatever, where she's been queen for 50 years.
Mm-hmm. So there's only
Or 60 years maybe.
4 presidents that are alive right now that have 5. No,
There are
Trump.
only 5 presidents that are alive.
Yeah, 5 presidents. Yeah,
Clinton, Bush,
Ford.
Trump, Obama, Ford.
Yeah.
No, not Ford.
No, Carter. My
Jimmy
bad. Sorry.
Carter. Yeah.
Jeez. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Lost my spot here. December 11th, 1941. So just we were talking earlier about Pearl Harbor and how that got the U.S. involved into World War II. December 11th, 1941, the United States formally declares war on Italy and Germany. after like having already declared war on Japan.
Oh, December 9th as well. China declared war on Japan, Italy, and Germany.
Okay.
But I think they already got invaded though.
Oh yeah, like in the like mid to late 30s.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, what? Okay, you barely declared war, dog. Yeah. What's going on here?
December 11th, 1967, the Concorde is unveiled in Toulouse, France. The Concorde being the first and only, I believe, supersonic passenger jet liner to exist. It ran for, I believe, about 25 years before finally being like discontinued, and like Concorde went out of business as a company. It just wasn't like their business model just didn't work. I'm surprised that something like this doesn't exist now. They use supersonic air travel.
It's probably too expensive.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, you know how technology is where they try to make it to where it's cheaper to do or cheaper to make, so you're able to make it more available. But maybe that technology is so just crazy to where you have to have like really good materials to build something like that every time.
I guess.
Because like when you look at a TV now, it's like
I can't imagine that there wouldn't be people that would pay for it. Like if you could be in if you could fly New York to London in like 2 hours or 3 hours.
Wasn't it
like,
like
I
a
guarantee
3-hour flight anyways?
No,
It's
no,
like
no,
5?
no. It's like 7.
7?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was less than that.
It was on. I flew from London to LA and it was almost 12.
Crazy.
So
I would have at least flew into New York, stayed there a day, and then
It
gone.
was a straight shot.
I
When
would've done
I
that.
came back from Europe, it was a straight shot. So yeah, it's like
That's brutal.
at least a 6-hour flight to London.
Dude, imagine going to Australia.
Yeah.
That happened. I'll watch.
Honestly, it's probably not that much longer of a flight than flying straight to London from here. From New York, yeah, it'd be really long, but
Are we going the other way?
yeah, across the Pacific.
Oh, okay. So
You don't go all the way around. Why would you go all the way
I
around?
don't know, dude. That's what I thought.
Are you a flat earther?
Yeah. No, I thought you went that way just because of like the way. I don't know. Yeah.
No, you go west.
I was gonna say, dude. I was just.
They're gonna fly all the way around the Earth just to go to Australia.
Nah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Maybe because I think of like when people take off from like the East Coast, probably.
Probably.
I would go the other ways if like I wouldn't go across Europe and stuff. I'd just go to LA and then there.
Well, if you're on the East Coast, though, you're probably literally on the other side of the world, so it doesn't matter which way you go.
Well, I'd rather go to LA than there.
Okay. One more day. December 12th, 1745.
1745.
A man named John Jay is born.
John Jay.
And John Jay was not only, I guess, he was one of the authors of some of the Federalist Papers.
Yes, he was.
If I remember correctly. Just a few of them, though.
Him,
Hamilton and Madison.
and James Madison.
Yeah.
James Madison mostly.
But he was also the very first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court.
I believe so, yes.
I'm telling you that is so. I do believe so.
Yeah, I believe so. That's what I said.
December 12th, 1770. I was surprised that they kind of left out like a key note to this event, but December 12th, 1770, the British soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre are acquitted of murder.
Yeah,
from their trial.
represented by John Adams.
Right, that's what was missing from this, and I'm surprised that it was. John Adams took up the position of their lawyer because no one would represent them in court, and he believed that if this was going to be a sort of a founding principle of a new nation, he needed to stand up for them now, and give them a fair opportunity, basically. Because obviously, if he had not chosen to represent them, then it kind of would have just turned into a mob rule sort of thing where they probably all would have been killed.
Just because of emotions and everything.
Right. Yeah. A little bit of mob rule. So kind of an important. I know the John Adams miniseries on HBO covers this trial in the second episode. So if you want to get a little, Hollywood version of this, dramatization. That was the word I was looking for. Of this event, you can check that out.
Yep.
And our very last point, December 12th, 1915. some dude named Frank Sinatra was born.
Ooh.
Probably
Chairman of the board.
Yeah, probably one of, maybe even I can't say the biggest, because there's like Elvis and Michael Jackson and stuff like that. But like this dude was pretty big for his time.
Yeah, for his era. I think
Yeah.
he was like his era. And then after him, I think it was Elvis. And then after Elvis, it was probably because there's like a weird, not gap, but you might throw like Bowie or John Lennon in there.
Yeah.
Or
They're
maybe
definitely up
even,
there.
I don't know. I don't want to put Elton John up there.
But yeah, Frank Sinatra obviously lived life to the fullest.
Yeah.
I guess that's the easiest way to put it. Buried with a bottle of Jack. My mom actually got to go see him in concert, and she always told me she was super disappointed because he was like completely wasted on stage.
I would not be surprised.
And he
about
like
that.
he couldn't remember the words to his songs, and he was like slurring the words and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Where my dad used to work at Cedar Sinai, that's where he passed away.
oh, dang.
My dad was actually he just started like not too long after he actually was in the hospital, which is kind of crazy.
Personally, I'm more of a Dean Martin. Like don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
like I love Frank Sinatra, but like to me, Dean Martin is the crown jewel of like that Rat Pack group. But
Yeah, I guess it depends on your flavor, dude. Honestly, that's what it really is.
Totally.
I have a ton of Sinatra records. And
Oh
I
yeah,
love
so do I.
them.
So do I.
But
And
yeah, a dude that kind of lasted a while, like his career, like it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. One thing I watched recently though, it was on YouTube, was they were kind of like Jeff Ross kind of brought like the roast kind of back, but they used to do like roast back in I think the
Oh yeah, it was a Dean Martin show.
yeah, it was a late 70s, early 80s, I think. And they had Reagan before he was president, before and after.
Yeah,
They had what's his name? I can't remember his name.
it was a Reagan, Don Rickles,
Yeah.
Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., like all the Rat Pack guys. Like literally anyone who was like big at the time was
Yeah.
like part of this.
And they
there
would
was
just
a
sit
few,
down and they would just destroy each other, and it was
maybe
hilarious.
a young Joan Rivers, or is that too early?
No. I think
Not
she was
Joan
on that.
Rivers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
she was on there.
I'm sure that like eventually maybe like Richard Pryor might have been on there.
Yeah, I think he might have been on like the later ones, I believe, because Richard
Um,
Pryor's been doing comedy since like the late 60s, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. So I honestly wish that like the Dean Martin show, like Don Rickles stuff, like those roasts that you're talking, the celebrity roast and stuff that you're talking about. I wish that some of that stuff was like more accessible.
Oh, it's on YouTube.
All of them are like, or
yeah,
just like clips.
there's like from what I saw, Don Rickles, like they do like when they actually go up and talk. There's no like in between stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So like you can actually go up and like Google.
Okay.
Just put Don.
Because I would
Rickles
watch
roast.
that sort of stuff like all the time.
And yeah, I literally spent like 3 hours just
Yeah.
watching like Don Rickles
'Cause
just roast all these guys.
That whole group of people, like they were such good friends that like nothing was off limits.
Yeah.
And that's what made those roasts so good. It's just like they would just completely go after each other.
Yeah. Another cool thing too was like just like watching Reagan, and it was just like weird to like see him get roasted. And then he actually went up and like talked too. Which
Yeah,
is kinda
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And Reagan himself, like for a president, if you know, for a politician, he's pretty funny.
Yeah, but like it was funny
Gets his political puns in
because they're like kind of hinting about like him being president. I guess like he was the governor at the time.
yeah.
And like it was just like, oh man, I wonder what he's gonna do if he runs this country or something. Like stuff like that was just like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun.
But yeah, definitely, I would definitely go and like look at those. Those are interesting. And I'm kind of glad that like Jeff Ross kind of done it, but like it's like in the newer version in a way because it's just weird.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that takes us to I think what will end up being our last topic. The other one that I have written down maybe should require a little bit more research.
What is it?
The other one that I had was the France riot stuff.
Oh, you want to talk? I could talk about a little about that.
Because like I don't like I know that there are a bunch of riots, but like I don't have like a full understanding of like what actually.
Did you listen to Ben's show yesterday?
I did.
He talks about it.
Yeah, he does. I mean, they talk about like the gas tax, and then there's like the ambulance strike. And
Well, I think it's another thing like about all the other stuff that's happened over here. Just it's always like just a variety of people with a variety of different issues when you look at it. But before you do that, let us know in the comments below what you thought about history and if we missed anything as well.